Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a Platinum game. We're going to be looking at a PvP today. And I usually don't cast Platinum. I try and stick to Gold and below so that I don't ever get in over my head at all in the advice. But someone posted this on, actually WoKao posted this on the TeamLiquid.net strategy forums and was looking for advice on how to deal with Colossus. And after watching this game, I just thought it was a really good example of something I wanted to talk about for a little while, so I decided to cast it anyway. And I think the point is generally going to be fairly relevant to people in most leagues, despite the level of the game itself. So we're going to be looking at, from mostly WoKao's point of view here, his opponent is going to be CaLmDoWnFUK. The Protoss player over here on the right-hand side of the map. And of course, that's not a swear word at all because it is missing a C. So the things that we're going to look at mostly during this game are going to be centered around leading towards the end of the game. So just a bit of a spoiler alert. Obviously, WoKao is going to lose this game, and he's going to lose it to Colossus. And he was asking on the forums, well, what should I do against a Colossus composition? How can I win that? And so on. And I wanted to kind of point out that that actually does not end up being the issue in this game. It's not really a how you counter it or anything. It's more what led up to that moment and what he could have done differently to be in a better position to fight it with anything. So the three key things that I'm going to look at are, number one, the idea that investment must eventually pay off for you. You always want to be kind of teching up, expanding your economy, expanding your upgrades, getting things like that on a continuous basis. However, there must be a point at which your investment actually culminates into a good attack, into a good timing, into something where you get a lot of payoff for what you're doing. So you actually get the return out of the investment that you've actually made. And we'll see throughout the course of this game that that's not necessarily what happens, that WoKao ends up investing, but never actually gets out of it the money that he put into it, and that ultimately does lead to a bit of a loss. The second thing that we're going to look at is the idea of figuring out what's missing. So a lot of people scout and they're looking for what they can see, but they often forget to look for what they can't see. You do not want to be losing this probe very early. That is really bad. He was able to see that there were two gases here, but if he had been able to stick around, he'd be able to tell whether more gateways went down or whether this robo was the immediate thing down. Anyway, you want to figure out what is missing from what you see, not just what you see. So I'll point that out as it comes up, but let's say WoKao should have been fairly suspicious that there was a big chunk of the army that he just was unaware of. The third thing that we're going to look at is the idea, don't throw good forces after bad. There are situations where you realize that you've made a bad engagement or you are caught in a bad position, and you just have to accept, I'm just going to sacrifice this, I'm going to pull out, I'm going to not throw any more forces into this, or whatever the case is. You don't want to be reinforcing a bad position, and you don't want to be making bad decisions at a time when you realize that you've entered a horrible encounter. You don't want to just further commit to that type of encounter, so that will come up as well. So in terms of the build itself, he wasn't able to actually see that the robo was going down first, but he did opt for that himself, going for the one gate robo before adding these two and getting the nexus as well before even adding on these two gateways, and then ultimately going for a fourth gateway. So there's a bit of oddness to this. It's a bit of a power build. He's going to decide to get a lot of production facilities actually out first before going for any sort of military at all. There's not even a single defending unit out on the map for WoKao at the moment. He didn't get anything out of these gateways yet. He got one observer over the out of the robo facility, not actually investing in anything else from there, and is just taking a look around. He is able to see that, yes, Luckily, my opponent did actually go for a Nexus as well. Had he decided to add on more gateways, which is, he's only got the one warp gate there, just adding a second now, and getting out a second Immortal. Had he gone for a bit more of a higher military opening here, then WoKao wouldn't really have any answer to that. He is aware, CaLmDown is aware that the expansion did go down here, and that's probably why he did opt to expand for himself. However, if he had just decided to not do that and invest a little more heavily in this army, then he probably could have just rolled over WoKao right there. So there is definitely a danger to build this much infrastructure this early. We've got 4 gateways, but really nothing out of them. The Robo Bay, nothing out of them, and went for double forge, but no return on these things yet. He's also put a lot of gas into these units so far. So as this attack comes up, he's definitely going to be glad that he's got the sentries to actually block these Immortals down at the bottom. For some reason, the Immortals decide to target fire this pylon. If they had target fired the Zealots to begin with, this could look a lot different right now. He probably could have taken out a few more of these, but because he didn't end up getting that forward pylon out, this one was taken out here, and he didn't bring any probe with this. So he could have taken out a few more of these units, but ultimately he wasn't going to do any major damage, like take out this Nexus or anything like that. There's no reinforcement coming behind this or anything of that nature. The Immortal would have taken forever to walk across the map, and so on. So the observers there does kind of see that this is the army that he's got in place. There's not a lot here, and he's considering, well, do I just push back against this? But rightly, as he sees another warp in of Zealots come, realizes, no, this is obviously not something I want to be doing. These Immortals, the single Immortal with the cover of the Zealots is just absolutely going to decimate everything. So he does pull back home, which is definitely the right move to be doing. Now back here we see even more investment into the future going on. We've got double upgrades going. Before getting a single Immortal out is going direct to Colossus, adding on 2 more gateways to bring us up to a total of 6, then going for a Twilight Council on top of everything. Does get the Colossus actually finally started here, but this is just a lot of stuff into the future, even starting a 3rd Nexus at this point. It's not necessarily that all of these things taken individually are bad. It's just taken completely together. This is a lot of investment into quite a bit in the future. This isn't going to pay off for at least several minutes, and it's just kind of preventing him from actually getting the units out that he would need to defend himself, or that he would need to launch any sort of attack here. He is way ahead in economy. He's done a great job there so far. He's supply blocking himself here, but we ultimately get that one Colossus out and don't even have enough minerals for a second going. So we've got one Colossus right now that represents an investment of about 700 minerals and 500 gas or something like that in terms of getting the Robo out that has only produced a single observer, which was able to see a fair bit of his enemy's base here. And it's just an overinvestment into deep into the future. Even here, instead of going for a second Colossus, we still don't have enough money for it because we've gone to the double upgrades again for level 2 on everything. We're going to get Blink instead, still sticking to the extended lance. Just going to be pumping more into making more probes. Not necessarily a bad idea, it's just not necessarily where his priority should be at this moment as well. This is not a large force for this period in the game, so he's got to be questioning, can this hold up against what my opponent is actually doing? And while we had a 30 supply advantage a little while ago, that's slowly going to be dwindling throughout the course of the game as his opponent does invest in a military, while everything here is very much geared towards the future. even more gateways going down. Good to have these coming on at a reasonable level, but I'd say he's doing these investments at a completely unreasonable level. He's trying to do too many things at once in too many different directions, even now adding on charge for his zealots. He's just trying to get every upgrade that is available for everything, but we've only actually got our second Colossus coming out at 14 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. Now, this is the thing that I really want to emphasize. If we are doing all these investments, which I don't necessarily agree with doing, but he may feel that it is safe to do, then the last thing in the world that you want to do is attack right now before you actually get the payoff out of them. This Colossus is coming out and isn't even going to join the main army. We're not making a third one. We just started 3-3, and there's no way that it's going to pay off during this attack, but he's committing to a huge attack up in the front with a single Colossus, a bunch of Blink Stalkers right in the front of his army. He's investing in charge at home and doesn't have it yet. This is just an absolutely brutal attack. After realizing that this army, that this wasn't going to work, and I will replay this and dissect what happens here, but after realizing that this isn't going to take out the force, he actually decides to attack the Nexus itself, gets everything completely cleaned up, and this was an absolute disaster from start to finish. This was a complete disaster. So we're just going to replay that a little bit and look at what really happens during this. So again, bringing in just at the worst possible time. The Stalkers are up front, has Blink ability, decides not to use it, not clear anything out, gets some force fields down, sees that things are raining in from the high ground, and at that point should have just immediately pulled out. Streams in a bunch of zealots behind that. There's no reason that he should not have canceled that reinforcement. They were not up the ramp yet by the time that he realized anything was wrong. Those zealots should have just absolutely gone home. Upon seeing what was here, the moment he saw any of those laser beams from the high ground, he didn't know that the Colossus were there. They were kind of being hidden down here most of the game. But he should have known, one, that something was missing. He was able to see that most of the ground army was like 20 zealots, a single immortal, and 4 stalkers for most of the game. You've got to realize that something isn't right about that, that somewhere else is about 1,500 gas that is being completely unaccounted for. There are 2 bases mining on 4 gases, and you're seeing only zealots and a single immortal. The gas is somewhere else, and you have to realize that and know that that is probably not only not a good attack, but certainly not a good attack without more information as to what's going on. And the moment he saw that, hey, there was something up there, should have just immediately pulled out, realized, oh, I lost a bunch of units, but I gotta get home because everything that I have is directed towards the future. Now that he's actually pulled back home, we're finally probably going to have 3-3 done, not quite in time for this attack. Has his army broken up into 2 parts. That's not too great. He must know that that was coming in after him. He did a reasonable job to actually delay this a little bit with his Blink Stalkers, but there's just so much here right now that there's no way this is going to be taken out. He decided to invest in a Stargate again, as opposed to just reinforcing. Well, not as opposed to, but he could have done more reinforcement of his standard army as opposed to going to something else. He's got 3-3 on all of these units. Why switch into air tech that has 0-0? It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to be doing. So while he does catch these without a lot of air cover, and the Void Ray does do a bit of damage, it doesn't take long before reinforcements come in, and obviously he's going to be able to take that out. Still not really making enough out of this. If you're going to try and defend in this situation, you want to be kind of regrouping in an area that's out of direct fire. He was just warping in right in front of the Colossus. Granted, it was a lost battle anyway. It was a completely lost cause at that point, but there are better ways to try and mount a comeback. Even if he did lose this natural, he could have just let this army in, I don't even know if they realized completely that this third was actually up and running. Actually, let me check. He knew that these were here from the Colossus walking by, but didn't actually see that there was a Nexus there. Probably assumed that that was the case, but still, you could have just let him take that out while you tried to regroup in either the main or the third and launch a bit of a counterattack. There's not a lot of ground forces really defending these Colossus at the moment, so he maybe could have done something, just given the bank he has and the fact that CaLmDown still didn't make a forward pylon up here, which is what kind of cost him in that first major attack up the ramp, just no way to reinforce. But the real key to all of this is that despite all the spending that was done, and look at the technology spending difference. 6,950 resources spent into upgrades and technology versus 2,800 on the red side. So all of that kind of extra resources coming from having a third base, having those probe advantage the entire game, having this extra production the entire game, just never actually paid off for him. There was never a point at which it felt like he was attacking at just the right time, that a key upgrade was done, or he just hit a key number of Colossus, hit a key tech, blink was just done and I want to go, charge is just done and I want to go. There was never a moment like that. Instead, the actual attack happened shortly after starting charge, shortly after starting +3 weapons, +3 armor, and when one Colossus was with your army while a second came out and didn't even join it. That is just, I couldn't have picked a worse timing for that attack to happen. And then when he did see that he was outnumbered, which CaLmDown was basically gearing up towards a push himself, he probably would have pushed about 30 seconds after that, because he was hitting a point that his 1-1 was just about to be done and he could have pushed out against that army. So just a horrible timing and horrible reaction when he did see that he wasn't going to win that. Instead of pulling back, he not only decided to just charge in, but charge towards a Nexus that, even if it was taken out, wouldn't have made that much difference. And just kind of bad decision making and too much investment. So really, while WoKao was asking what composition should I do against that many Colossus, I just wanted to do this to point out that that wasn't the issue at all. The composition that he had wasn't actually going to make the difference. It's where he chose to attack, when he chose to attack, and the overinvestment into things that had not yet paid off. If you're going to do that type of technology investment, wait for it to actually get done and wait for you to really hit stride with that. If he had waited until that 3-3 was done, and then this army tried to attack into a 3 or 4 Colossus army off of 11 warp gates and 3 bases, it would have got absolutely shredded. But he attacked into him at the worst possible time when he was getting no benefit from any of those things yet. So I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching, guys.